Good morning.
Good
Today,
morning.
hi. Today,
Um,
in our reading session, we're looking at different styles of writing and writer's voice, so style and tone. Our aims and outcomes. By the end of this session, you must identify different writing styles and identify the difference in levels of seriousness and formality in journalistic styles. You should identify different tones in texts and be aware of opposite tones, such as serious and fun. And you could understand what writer's voice is. So style and tone. In your level 2 reading exam, you'll be required to identify and discuss the tone and style of various texts. So this requires an all-round knowledge of understanding texts. So unlike previous tasks where you may need to identify formal or informal aspects, this part of functional skills looks at more specific areas. So the style. All texts have a style, which is usually determined by the audience and or the purpose of the text. And these styles include the following: factual, academic, official, instructional, journalistic, and fictional. Factual texts, these can be found in many places. So in newspapers, magazine articles, textbooks, on the internet, so news websites and so on. And factual writing will usually be in a formal style. So it will use long and complex sentences, it won't have contractions, and so on. It will often be backed up with statistics and evidence. So you might have numerical data in there and references to evidence. It will be well organised and have a clear layout, so information can be found easily. So it will probably have, as well as the main heading, it will have subheadings. So it may have footnotes, quotations, or other forms of reference. It may use diagrams or charts to explain complex data. So if it includes in the text references to numerical data, such as a survey or percentages, so for example, percentage increases in temperature for a factual text on climate change, it may then use a diagram or graph chart to enable to visualize that data.
okay.
It will introduce its subject and then follow it with a balanced argument, so giving evidence on both sides of the argument. And then it will include a conclusion as well to summarize the main points. Okay, so academic texts. So academic writing, it's similar in style to factual writing. And will include elements of this, but it may be even more detailed and precise. So academic texts are used by other academics in that field and beyond to improve their own knowledge, to inform studies. So they're examined in great detail. They'll perhaps appear in a journal. So, for example, the British Medical Journal will include obviously factual writing and articles in there will be studied in great detail by other doctors in that field. So it needs to avoid any omissions or errors, because these will be quickly picked up by other experts reading that text. It needs to be clear and logical. Because it's an academic text, it's very specific to a particular area. It may be dry, or might say not fun to read, because its purpose is to educate, to inform, not to entertain. And academic writing may offer other sources on the subject written about to add further balance. So it may refer the readers to do their own follow-up reading. And it's usually going to include technical or very specific vocabulary. I'm going to share with you an academic text as an example. Okay, so if we go to the top, so this is an article about United States healthcare reform. It's actually written by Barack Obama. And it's as an academic text, it gives us the abstract, so it gives us some background to why it's been written. And if I just read a little bit of it, the importance, so we've got some subheadings there. It's well organised. The Affordable Care Act is the most important healthcare legislation enacted in the United States since the creation of Medicare and Medicaid in 1965. The law implemented comprehensive reforms designed to improve accessibility, affordability, and quality of healthcare. So already we can see there the complex sentences. So the sentence structure is very formal. The vocabulary used is formal as well. We can move on, and we can see here the numerical data that's included. So, for example, an estimated reduction in debt sector collection of $600 to $1,000 per person. So 3.4 percentage points. So we've got that numerical statistical data in there as well, which is a feature of academic texts. There's a conclusion as well. So this top part is really a summary of what the reader is going to find when they carry on reading. Also at the end, if we flip to the end, so this is an online version, but obviously in a printed version of this journal, then you would find this on the final page, the references, so people can refer to, can go and find those studies, books, texts that have been referred to within this academic article. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about academic texts? Okay, so official texts. So these can include letters, business proposals, and press releases, among many others. So we've all probably received an official letter. So it might be to do with health, or from HMRC about taxes, or it could have been a contract for your job or for buying a property, and so on. So all of us will probably have seen one of these sorts of official texts at some point. So the features are formal language. So in a letter, you particularly would find polite language, so addressing someone, dear, so dear Mr. Smith, and so on. Possibly might include technical elements, so for example, a business proposal or a legal document possibly could include those specific and technical elements. Extreme detail, so particularly legal documents. So when you're purchasing a house and you have the legal documents about ownership, there's extreme detail in there, and also technical vocabulary. And again, particularly with legal documents, archaic language, so old-fashioned language, including Latin. And neutral and impersonal language is often found as well. So there's a bit of contradiction there. If it was a letter, you would find some personal elements, but a legal document, for example, would be neutral and impersonal. It's just laying out the facts. It's not giving any opinions. So instructional texts, and these can include wikis or manuals. So it can be a set of instructions for building something or fixing something, or a recipe, which is a set of instructions for, obviously, for making food. So the style includes instructional language, so using those imperative or command verbs, technical vocabulary specific to the subject. So a set of instructions that we have looked at previously was about building some shelves, I think it was, and included terminology that would be familiar. So it's technical vocabulary familiar to a carpenter or a joiner, but wouldn't necessarily be understood by the general population. It may include features such as diagrams, illustrations, and bullet points, and advisory language. So as well as those imperative or command verbs, it might include advisory language as well. So could, should, might. And there'll be precise language as well. It's really important if you're following instructions that you should be given exact, precise language, so that what you make or what you're fixing or the instructions you're following lead you to the outcome that the writer intended. So it needs to be precise language. So if we can look at an example of instructional text. So most simple and common would be a recipe. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with how a recipe might look. So a heading, and then of what you're making, then subheadings showing where the ingredients are and the method. We can see those bullet points for what you need, the ingredients at the top. And then the method, we've got numbered steps. We can see the command verbs there, preheat. So not you could preheat, but preheat. It's ordering you to do it, it's commanding you. So those imperative verbs. So preheat, tip, shape. So often in instructions, that will be the first word in the sentence, will be that command or imperative. And then we've also got you could as well. So we've got advisory language. So there in the recipe, it's a serving suggestion. You could serve these cookies in this way. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So journalistic texts. So these range from tabloid to serious newspapers. So magazine articles. It could be a report in a newspaper about a breaking story. And they can be in print or online. And they vary in style depending on the seriousness of the writer and who the intended audience is. So there's two main styles that are usually referred to. So serious or broadsheet journalism. So broadsheets refers to newspapers such as the Telegraph, the Times, the Guardian. Some of those are smaller print versions now, but in the past, they were like the Financial Times is a big fold-out newspaper. All of those serious newspapers were large like that. They'd fold out and they were big physical newspapers, which is why they're known as broadsheets. And then the other types of newspapers or magazines are tabloid journalism. So things like The Sun, The Mirror, The Express, and so on. And the two styles are very different. So in a serious newspaper, a broadsheet newspaper, there'd be a logical approach to the subject, often a serious tone, serious subject matter to the article. So what are they writing about in that newspaper? What are those texts that usually a serious subject matter? If there's opinion, then it's often seen to be more thoughtful and balanced. There's more text and fewer images. So if you look at the page or the front page of one of those newspapers, it's less eye-catching. There's a lot more text and often only maybe possibly one smaller picture. So the other side of that, of journalistic text, is tabloid journalism. So it's more emotive. So the language used is more emotive. The subject matter is a lot more varied. So it might include celebrity stories, salacious stories. There's a lot more like human interest stories, such as about an animal being rescued. So there's more, a wider range of subject matter would be included in those sorts of newspapers. And the opinion in these varies from mild to extreme, so it's less measured. And if you look at the front page, there will be often a huge picture taking up a lot of the page, not just on the front page, also as you flick through the newspaper. So eye-catching images to draw the reader in, and the images will be used as part of the story. So we're going to look at two versions of a story that was in the news this week and just have a look at some of those differences. So the first one is the broadsheet. So can you all see, can you see the Guardian? Or if you can't see the Guardian, let me know. So you should be able to see that. So I'm just sharing my screen. And we look at the headline. Prince Harry hints he's open to family reconciliation after King's cancer diagnosis. So we're looking at an online version, but this would be the same story in the print version of the Guardian. So we've got the picture there of the prince being interviewed. So we can just read a little bit of it. Prince Harry has said he was grateful to have been able to fly in from the US to visit his father and hinted King Charles's cancer diagnosis could heal the rift within the royal family. In an interview with a US broadcast TV programme on Friday, the Duke of Sussex said his trip to London to see the King could be a step to reunifying his relatives after years of strained relations. And I've got a quote there. I love my family, and the fact I was able to get on a plane and go and see my father and spend time with him, I'm grateful for that. So if we just move on a little, asked about his life in the US and whether he had contemplated becoming a US citizen, the prince said he had considered it. Okay. So we could carry on, but you get the idea there. So quite complex sentences, some formal language in there. So we're going to change now and we're going to look at a tabloid version of the same story. So this is the Sun. So we can see there the picture is much bigger, much more a feature of, in fact, it's a video as well. So I love my family. Harry said he hopes King Charles' cancer fight will heal Royal Rift as it opens up on Dash Back to UK on Good Morning America. So straight away, we've got the quote. So it's more emotive. So if we look at the Guardian one again, Prince Harry hints he's open to family reconciliation. So it's more formal. Sorry about this, it's not letting me see the top, so I can change. There we go. And then if we look at the sun, yeah, so there's lots of pictures in there. So they are making up part of the story, lots of different pictures. So in this story, refers a lot to Harry rather than Prince Harry or the Prince. So it's less formal. Okay. Asked if the King's illness could have a reunifying effect on the family, he added, yeah, sure. So it's just the whole tone of it is less formal. Does anyone have any questions about the difference between those two articles? Okay. So that's something you can go away and consolidate by looking yourself. You don't need to buy the newspaper, but just looking at the same story in two different types of newspaper or their websites. So just look at the language used, the use of photographs and images, how it's different, the vocabulary. It will just give you that contrast between the two. So fictional texts. So these can be stories, poems, novels, scripts, and so on. The key features we'll find in these fictional texts. So it can be flowery, imaginative, descriptive language. The characters and situations are imaginary. Sometimes, particularly with poetry, we can see an unusual style. So it could be in the phrasing of the words, the word order, but also graphically how it looks on the page. So it might have different line spacing, paragraphing, and so on. It won't quote sources or research unless sometimes in a historical novel it might refer to a source or a work based in reality, so based on, you know, something like a scientific discovery or something like that. So it generally would not quote sources or research. And longer texts, such as a novel, would be organised into acts, chapters, or episodes. So I've got a couple of examples to show you. So the first one is a poem called Needles. I wrote a poem in the shape of a Christmas tree, but then forgot to water it. And only a few days later, there were words all over the carpet. And that's by Brian Bilston. So we can see there it doesn't follow any rules about how we normally see text on a page. And there's no punctuation, so it's not following general rules, sorry. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so we'll just look at an excerpt from a novel, so a work of fiction, and I'll just read it out. You can follow on the screen. His auntie walked faster, her slippers making slap slap sounds that echoed in the silent street. Ugwu wondered if she too could feel the cold tar getting hotter underneath through her thin soles. They went past a sign, Odim Street, and Ugwu mouthed street, as he did whenever he saw an English word that was not too long. He smelled something sweet, heady, as they walked into a compound, and was sure it came from the white flowers clustered on the bushes at the entrance. The bushes were shaped like slender hills, the lawn glistened, butterflies hovered above. And that's from Half of a Yellow Sun. Okay, so if we just have a look at that extract, what features does that have that we would expect to see in a fictional text like a novel? Can anyone tell me any features they can see there? So I'm just going to quickly show you those features. So if you just read those, I'll give you a moment and then we'll look back at that extract from a novel and you can tell me what you can see. So what features can you see in that short extract? We can't see everything because it's just a paragraph. But what can you see? You'll need to unmute yourself because I've put everybody on mute. So anybody just share with me what you notice? Okay, we've got 6 people in the lesson. And somebody share with us something they notice, any features at all that they notice in that extract. So anything about the language or the sentence structure. Okay, did someone share something then?
Hello.
Hello.
I said I don't know how to say it. The last line. That's
Yeah.
what the law glistened. Full stop.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah.
Butterfly hovered above. Full stop.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So I was
I think that's too short.
Yeah. Well done. I was hoping someone would talk about the descriptions. So descriptive language. Well done. The lawn glistened. Butterflies hovered. The bushes shaped like slender. Well done. So we've got that. Some people might call it flowery language. I would say it's descriptive language. So that's descriptive, poetic even type language. There's another example there. He smelled something sweet, heady. White flowers clustered. So that's that type of descriptive language is what we see in in fictional texts, and it isn't something we would normally see in a non-fiction or factual piece of writing. Well done.
Thank
we've
you.
also got the characters, so they are imaginary characters, the auntie and Ugu.
Ugu.
Okay, let's go back. So any questions about fictional texts? Okay, so let's move on. So we have a quiz in the middle today about what we've already covered. So we've got an extract here, and we need to say which type of writing style it is. So thinking about those features that we have just looked at. In 2015, it resulted in about 114,800 deaths. And there's a reference there, 8, so we need to refer to that. The condition was first described in the medical literature by the American physician James B. Herrick in 1910. We've got some more references there. In 1949, the genetic transmission was determined by E.A. Beat and J.B. Neal. So is that journalistic, instructional, fictional, or academic?
Is it academic?
It is academic. What
Academic.
So can anyone tell us why we know it's academic? What features tell us that it is academic?
It's got reference.
References.
Excellent. Well done, both of you. The reference numbers. Anything else that we might see?
With numbers. With
The
the
numbers,
with
well,
the amount of numbers.
we might see those in journalistic texts as well, but they are a feature of academic writing, referring to dates and figures. Well done. So that was academic. So let's look at this one. The wind blew gently through her hair as she stood on the desolate riverbank. So the same choices: journalistic, instructional, fictional, or academic?
Fictional.
Good. So what tells you it's fictional?
It's more like a fiction. The wind blew, no nothing, no name is given.
Yes.
Like there's no description of whom.
Excellent. So
the
it's
wind blew.
Yeah, good. So the wind blew gently. Okay. So descriptive. The descriptive language here tells us it's fictional. Okay. The property aforementioned will remain the property of the leaseholder ad infinitum, unless there is a change in property law. So we've got different choices: journalistic, instructional, fictional, or official.
Instructional. Hold on. Property aforementioned will remain the property of official.
Official. What tells you it's official? Well done.
Yeah, because it's more like a law.
Yes, so
Yeah,
law. So can you tell us any of the language that you can see there that you wouldn't normally see in a newspaper report or something like that?
If you need to.
Good. So we've got that archaic with language ad infinitum, the Latin that's often found in legal documents. Well done. Okay. After attaching the twine to the half-formed mannequin, glue the lower side of the torso to it. So journalistic, instructional, fictional, or official?
That's instructional.
Good. And what tells us it's instructional?
Because it's giving directives.
Good. It's got those command verbs. So
command verbs.
So we've only got one really, but glue So it's not saying you
Yeah.
could glue, it's saying you need to do it.
You
Glue
need to-
the lower side of the torso to it. Okay, good. Okay, so we're now going to look at tone. Tone is less about what you say and more about how you say it. So we've got a list here of different types of tones. I want you to think about which ones are opposites of each other. So sarcastic, polite, optimistic, fun, pessimistic, serious, erratic, consistent, and genius. So which of those are opposites?
Opposite of sarcastic is polite.
It could be.
Serious.
Pardon?
Serious.
Serious, and what would be the
Sarcastic.
No, they're the same. More is
So-
more like the same.
So sarcastic is not the same as serious, but it's not an opposite. So something
Okay.
very serious. You imagine serious being very straight faced. What would the opposite of that be?
Sarcastic is
So if we think about serious, what would the
opposite of
opposite of serious be?
Fun.
opposite of
Fun. Well done. Okay, so we've got fun, serious, sarcastic, polite.
Okay.
So sarcastic can sometimes be viewed as rude. So rude, so rude and polite we would know, but sarcasm and polite. What about optimistic? So
pessimistic.
pessimistic. Well done. And then we've got erratic, consistent, and genius. Can anyone see any opposites in there?
Yeah. Erratic is erratic. Erratic is it consistent?
It is, yes. So erratic means it's all over the place. It's disorganized. You know, it's not written thoughtfully. Whereas consistent, it's well ordered. There's organized to it. So they are the opposites. Okay. So we're going to look here at some sentences and decide which one is optimistic, which one is pessimistic. So optimistic, looking on the bright side, being positive, and pessimistic, negative. Okay, being negative about something. So by the end of the concert, the crowd were ecstatic. I left feeling that I'd fallen in love with music all over again. And the next sentence, managerless, rudderless, hopeless. This football team haven't got a hope of avoiding relegation. So which one is optimistic? Which one is pessimistic?
Pessimistic is which sentence has an optimistic.
Sorry, which one's pessimistic?
The bottom one.
Yeah, the bottom one. Well done. What tells us it's pessimistic? Well, I've already shown you there.
Rule of
Early. Yeah, so it's
negative language is optimistic.
good. The negative language
is optimistic.
There's no positives or upsides mentioned. We've also got that exaggeration by using the rule of three technique. Managerless.
Yeah.
So well done.
Pessimistic is a good.
Yes, so this is the optimistic sentence, the top one. What tells us it's optimistic?
The top one.
How do we know it's optimistic?
It's positive.
It's good. You can tell a kind of good recommendation and good belief or feeling or whatever.
Yes, telling us I'd fallen in love with music. So it's that positive language.
Yeah, it's positive.
Emotive, I'd fallen in love. The crowd were ecstatic. It's upbeat. So just have a look at these sentences and think about whether they are optimistic or pessimistic. Just have a look at them yourself for a moment. Okay, so if everybody washed their dishes, we wouldn't have this stinking mess. Is that optimistic or pessimistic? Sorry, I'm not thinking.
Rude and polite.
Or rude. If everybody washed their dishes, we wouldn't have this stinking mess.
That's rude.
Rude. So what makes it rude?
Because of the tone of the language and the stinking mess.
Yes, so stinking. It's even been put in capital.
Yes, stinking.
To emphasize it. And then we've got there underlined. So we're using that pronoun to add to that effect.
And there is not
emphasize their dishes.
Their dishes.
So direct language. It's got a blind emphasized word. The capital that you spotted, stinking, and a strong adjective. Okay,
while the polite one is kindly.
Yes, so we've got that one.
Kindly, yeah.
Yeah. And
the kindly there.
Yeah, and it's giving that choice if. So it's not using direct language.
Yeah.
Okay. We would be very grateful. Okay. So it's a request rather than a demand, mannered. So you've spotted that word kindly and grateful. It's indirect. So it's just a more polite tone. So genuine or sarcastic. So well done to all those bridge builders, in inverted commas, who wanted peace in the country. We now have a worse situation. Fantastic. So is that genuine?
It's genuine.
That's sarcastic.
It's genuine.
It's sarcastic.
Okay, what makes you think it's sarcastic?
Because he's saying well done to a situation that he's saying is even worse now.
Exactly. So we've got that contradiction in the language. Well done, but actually then he says it's a worse situation. Any punctuation there that tells us it's sarcastic?
Inverted commas.
Excellent. So the bridge builders. So putting a word in inverted commas like that is saying that the writer doesn't really believe that. So it's a bit like saying to all those so-called bridge builders. They put it in inverted commas to show they don't believe that description. So well done.
So it's sarcastic.
Yeah, so that one's sarcastic. So the ironic well done, they don't really mean it. They say well done, but then they say these people have made the situation worse. Okay.
Okay.
So that means if this sentence was sarcastic, this one is genuine.
Genuine,
Tells us it's genuine. One day, all children in this nation will have the opportunity to attain an excellent education.
It gives hope.
Pardon?
It gives hope.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It does give hope.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. So it's inspiring. So exactly what you've just said, it gives hope. It's idealistic. It's positive. Opportunities. All children. Excellent education. So that use of language gives us that genuine tone.
Yeah.
Okay, which of these is serious, which is fun? She's been in the Big Brother house for 2 weeks. She'll paint the town red when she gets out. And then the other sentence, by extracting the DNA using hitherto unused techniques, the scientists can speed up their current process. So which one's serious, which one's fun?
The first one is fun.
Good. And what tells us it's fun?
It's talking about having a good time, Big Brother, and when she comes out, she will paint the city red.
Exactly, yeah. We've also got the punctuation, the exclamation mark at the end. An exclamation mark wouldn't really be seen in a serious piece. So the trivial subject matter. So it's not a serious topic. It's just talking about Big Brother reality TV program. The simple language, so short sentences. It's cliched. Paint the town red. And the exclamation as well. So well done. And the
second one.
Sentence, pardon.
The second one is serious. You can see it's serious business. DNA, extracting DNA, using DNA to use technique.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, scientists.
The sentence structure, what can you tell me about that?
Extracting DNA,
Can anyone tell me anything about the sentence structure?
Hold on. 1 minute. I think the commas are too much.
I don't think they're too much. We have got the commas in there, but they're used because we've got a subordinate clause. So if so this is the subordinate clause. That's not good. So using hitherto unused techniques. So this part could be taken out. We could get rid of that and the sentence would still make sense. By extracting the DNA, scientists can speed up their current process. So we've got, that's the main clause, and we've got this subordinate clause which adds some information. They're extracting the DNA using hitherto unused techniques. They've not been used before. So that is a complex sentence structure. So we're in a serious piece of writing, then we're more likely to see complex sentences rather than simple sentences. Yeah,
because it's complex, really. It's complex.
So, and the language as well, extracting, hitherto, techniques. So it's more serious language vocabulary. So it's a long sentence or a complex sentence. It's formal. In the first fun sentence, we've got she's, we've got contractions. Instead of she is, we've got she's, and she'll, she will. Whereas in this sentence, we haven't got any contractions. It's more formal. We've got that subordinate clause I've underlined, and technical techniques, the scientists extracting the DNA. Okay, any questions? Okay.
No.
Erratic or consistent? So is it all over the place with no structure to it, or is it well ordered and making sense? So all of my life I have been a supporter of the Independent Democrats. You should be too. I first came across their policies in 1986 when I read their excellent manifesto for the local elections that year. The opposition leader was an idiot, so it was a no-brainer.
that was erratic.
Well, let's have a look at the next one. That first election was brilliant. They secured an unprecedented 11% of the vote and won councils in Surrey, Glamorganshire and Teesside. Couldn't win a single seat, said some. My eye. So which of those two makes more sense? It's easier to read.
The second one.
Okay, let's have a look.
Yeah.
So as a whole, so we've got this last sentence here. It's a shame they folded in 1991 without trace. So let's look at this as a whole for this text rather than one and the other. So we're going to read it through and then look at those features. and then we'll decide.
Okay.
All my life, I've been a supporter of the Independent Democrats. You should be too. I first came across their policies in 1986 when I read their excellent manifesto for the local elections that year. The opposition leader was an idiot, so it was a no-brainer. That first election was brilliant. They secured an unprecedented 11% of the vote and won councils in Surrey, Glamorganshire and Teesside. Couldn't win a single seat, said some. My eye. It's a shame they folded in 1991 without trace. So if we look at the grey boxes, we can see some of what the features of this piece of writing. So there's a fun start. It's personal. I have been a supporter. You should be too. But then the second sentence becomes more formal. I first came across their policies in 1986 when I read their excellent manifesto. So the structure and the language used becomes more formal. But then, if we look at the opposition leader was an idiot, it was a no-brainer. We've returned to that informal style. It's rude. Okay.
Erratic.
Yeah, so it's erratic. And then we've got the first election was brill. They secured an unprecedented 11% of the vote. And we've got a star there indicating there's a reference, which would be an academic style of text, needing to look at the footnotes. But then if we move on, he said, my eye. So,
what does that mean?
My eye, it means, so it's like saying, don't believe it, like as if, you know,
Okay.
might say, as if that happened. Someone might say,
because to me, that my eye wanted to discourage me to see it as an academic writing.
Yeah, so that my eye is what we call colloquial or everyday English. To be honest, it's quite old-fashioned. It's not something you hear people saying now. But in these days, people would more likely to say as if. So someone tells you about I don't know, that a football team. I'm trying to think of an example.
Is my eye something like? Oh
Someone
my God.
says that Fulham won 23-0 against Manchester United.
I can't believe it.
Someone would say, I can't believe it, as if that wouldn't happen. So saying my eye, it's not you wouldn't really hear it anymore.
It's like unbelievable.
As if that wouldn't have happened. Don't believe it. Okay. But again, using that kind of sarcasm it's very mixed up with the formal academic style, and then we've got that informal sarcasm.
That's what I'm saying. You made the sentence look non-academic.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all over the place. We've got a personal style, we've got academic, we've got formal, we've got sarcasm, we've not got a proper summary at the end. So as you've already said, it is erratic. It's all over the place. It doesn't know what tone it is using. It's just using a mixture of many features and tones.
Okay, where did, can you go back a bit, please?
Yeah.
Where did the last one go? It's a shame they folded it without trace. It has no.
So
it has nothing. It doesn't. I don't know. It's like a phrase.
So that one's just the last sentence in this piece, in this text, and it doesn't give us a summary of this person's support for the Independent Democrats. It's just so if someone's writing about their support for this political party, they've told us when they first found them about an election, and then to finish that, you should really have a bit of a summary of why you still like them or what they've already told us. But instead, they're just telling us they folded without trace. So again, it's erratic. It's not a proper ending.
Okay.
So the writer's voice. A writer's voice is often seen as their style plus tone and attitude. And it's the writer's unique personal way of writing. So books by a particular author, novels, will often be seen to have that writer's voice. So there's a similarity, even though the stories can be completely different, there is a similarity in the writer's voice, in the style and the tone of the work. So the attitude is illustrated by a writer's beliefs and values, and is often the emotional part of their writing. The writer's voice is a combination of everything in someone's writing that indicates who they are. Okay, so that's we've come to the end for today, just 5 minutes early, which is good timing. So any questions about what we have looked at today?
I think we'll do it again. I hope we'll do it again.
Okay, well, there will be a recording, so you can look through again to consolidate. Right. You can also, there are some activities. So if you log into Moodle, for each lesson that we do in this session, there are activities you can complete to practice and to check your understanding.
Okay, I'll try later on.
Yeah. So I've also been telling people, because to have more practice with the skills that we're learning, if you go on the BBC Bite Size website and search for functional skills, then there are some pages you can look at which will give you some more support with reading and writing skills. So that's just some extra things you can do during the week. And another thing I always say is, just while you are out and about, if you sat on a bus or a tram and you can grab a copy of the free newspaper, just think about the different styles that you see, the different features in the writing. Have, on your phone, you can read the news and look at different news websites, think about the contrast between them and so on. If you're reading a novel, what language features are used, what can you spot in that? So just be thinking about it whenever you've got a chance to read something during the week. Okay.
All
right then. Well, thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Remember that there's no session tomorrow.
All right.
Reading this week.
All
okay.
Right.
I'll see you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.